welcome back to the Synergy Sanctum. My name is Justin. Thank you so much for stopping by. Here at the Synergy Sanctum, we specialize in all things related to Magic the Gathering, with a specific focus on deck building. So I aim to show you very quick deck text that'll show you all of the cards in the deck and how they work together to ultimately achieve the goals of that deck. If you're not already, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. And we also have a sister channel now, so head on over to Commander Coliseum and check out their content as well. For today's deck tech, we have Magda Brazen Outlaw. This is a very competitive build with a focus on getting out dragons and triggering those enter the battlefield effects. There are some combos in the deck as well, and Magda is arguably another very competitive deck to have at the table. Current TCG market value of this deck is around $687 to $808, and our land count for this deck is at 33, with 17 of those being mountains and 16 of those being non-basic lands. So the strategy for this deck is to get out a single mana cost Dwarf as quickly as possible. You're looking for that turn 1 play, because then on turn 2, you're ideally attacking with that Dwarf before people have blockers out, and then starting to create these treasures. We want to get to that 5 treasures as quickly as possible, so that we can then tutor out whatever answer we want or whatever dragon we want. So, starting us off today, this is one of the easiest ways to make treasures in this deck, and that is by using these single mana cost dwarves. We are running every single mana cost dwarf that exists in Magic the Gathering, so every single one of these cost a single red mana or a single mana, and then we also have Mutavault, which as a land, you can pay 1 to make it a 2/2 creature with all creature types, so that ultimately ends up being a dwarf. And it's great that it's a land, because then you can just tap it for mana, which then makes a makes a treasure rather. Moving on from here, we have other dwarves in the deck, so each of these as well would be able to tap and make a treasure with Magda on the board. Dwarven Recruiters really well, because they can tutor out whatever dwarfs you want and put those into or on the top of your library in any order. Axeguard Cavalry has its own built-in tap ability and is able to give haste to something you might tutor out. Maskwood Nexus has making basically everything you have on the board a dwarf, and it can also create a dwarf. And then Torbran, everyone knows what Torbran does, but he's kind of making the damage go even greater in this deck. So, because these dwarves are so small with their power, we don't want to risk losing them on attacks. So ideally, those initial attacks can probably get through like the first 1 to 2 turns. But after that, we need ways to kind of tap these dwarves and protect them. So these are the ways of doing that in the deck. Dwarven Blood Boiler is definitely a showstopper here. He can tap any amount of dwarves, and he can give something a boost, but it's here to tap the dwarves and make the treasures. Chiron Negotiations, the same thing. And then we have a vehicle with Cultivator's Caravan. It has crew 3, so that ultimately ends up being 3 dwarves. Access Tunnel can make something unblockable, and then these 2 lands, Survivor's Encampment and Holdout Settlement, can tap an untapped creature to make a red mana. So again, if any of these are out, you have other options to tap the dwarves and make those treasures. So eventually in the deck, we're going to hit that 5 treasures, and we're going to be able to tutor out a scary thing to the board. So these are the dragons that we are running. These are a lot of the basically best dragons in mono red. Ancient Copper Dragon is definitely one that you might want to tutor for first, because if it deals combat damage, you can roll a d20 and then you get that many treasures, so then you can start churning through and getting even more dragons out or even more artifacts. There is some kind of synergy here by having dragons out first, like Laughless Dragon Queen or Terror of the Peaks, because then those trigger off of more dragons coming in. So Laughless makes more bodies, Terror of the Peaks does damage equal to the creature's powers. If we're later in the game and we've done a lot of damage, Nullspine Dragon is a great thing to tutor for, because it can replenish your hand and draw, and everything else is kind of just doing crazy dragon things here. If we move on to the artifacts that you want to tutor, there is a combo in the deck, and it revolves around Clock of Omens and turning Magda or a creature besides Magda into an artifact. And the intent here is to be able to tap 2 untapped artifacts you control to then untap an artifact. So ideally, what we would want to do is we would want to be targeting one of our creatures, most likely Magda, and making that an artifact with either liquid metal coating or torque or the Mycosith Latus. At that point, then we would tap Magda and even the Clock of Omens, and that would then let you untap a target artifact. So tapping Magda would then make a treasure, and if you have 2 dwarves that are artifacts with the Mycosith Latus out, then you can just do this infinitely, because then you're basically untapping them and you're making treasures, and you have ways to keep getting treasures to tutor stuff out of the deck. We are running Meteor Golem for removal. We have Lightning Greaves to put onto a creature that you might bring out of the deck. There is a Blightsteel Colossus in here. I have had multiple games where I am consistently able to get a turn 4 Blightsteel Colossus out on the board with haste, so really scary and broken. We have the Eldrazi Monument and the Mithril Coat as protection, so you can tutor those out in response to something that might get killed by your opponents and save them. And then Platinum Angel as a backup plan in case we need to stall the game out so we can't lose. And then there's tons of other good stuff in the deck. I think I run Repercussion in every single red deck that I play. If you get this out early and then you Blasphemous Act while your opponents have more than a few creatures on the board, you kind of win right away. Imperial Recruiter can tutor out a Dwarf. We've got Chaos Warp and other removal spells in red. We are running a little bit of stacks with Blood Moon and Stranglehold. We have other forms of removal, and we have things like Sneak Attacks. So if the Magda strategy ends up failing, you still have the ability to bring a dragon from your hand into play for a single red, even though it will be sacrificed at the end of turn. Lots of draw control. So if we have a big hand filled with our dragons or artifacts that we can't cast, we want to put those back in the deck so that Magda can tutor them. And then very, very big backup plans here with Mob Rule and Disrupt Decorum to kind of force the opponents with the better board states to attack each other. And then finally, our mana base for this deck, as well as other ways to make treasures. So we are running the red discount artifacts with Ruby Medallion and Fire Crystal. We've got Runaway Steamkim, which gets pretty crazy pretty quickly. Jessica's Will, of course. Mana Geyser, Extra Planner Lens doubles our red. Ways to make other treasures in the deck with Ragavan, Treasure Map. Zorn doubles up the treasure production. Reaver Cleaver later on in the game can make treasures off of combat damage. And then again, my 2 favorite draw spells in red, Big Score and Unexpected Windfall, each make 2 treasures respectively, as well as get you 2 additional draws. And with that, our show has come to an end. Thank you so much for watching our video, and if you enjoyed that video, feel free to share it out with any friends who might find value in it as well. Thank you so much for stopping by. We hope to see you again soon. Have a good one.